Good evening, Red Race fans, and welcome to Racers Elite Network as we arrive here back in the big house at Daytona, but we're coming off of the high banks, and tonight we're duking it out here on the road course. So strap grandma in as we're already underway 4 laps into this race as it's hot and heavy side-by-side action out there on the racetrack. And while they're bumping and grinding, let me introduce to you my wingman tonight for the foreseeable future here on Thursday nights. Ron, how are you this evening?
Well, done pretty good. A lot of action currently underway, and kind of quickly catch everybody up. Quick time qualifier was Diego Rodriguez with a 1:55.477 second lap. That looks to be about 6 seconds off the world record here with the Racers Elite Network, anyway, as far as back as I could see. After the drop the green flag, Diego Rodriguez brought us up for an early lead. Brandon Honeycutt was out mowing the grass, and actually about now he'd probably plowing snow, but Ryan Coker also missed a couple chicanes, and Kinsley Smith having a rough go at it after a strong show last week.
Yeah, thank you for that quick summary, and I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen. There was an accident on the roadway, delayed me by a couple minutes, but you can always count on Rod to have that insider info as we now resume coverage here. As I previously stated, this race now 4 laps written into the history books, and to Ron, your point, this racetrack will test even the the most highly accredited road racers, if you will. A lot of tough braking zones out there. Oh, if you miss a little bit, it will pay. It'll make you pay. And as you mentioned, some of the elites, like Brandon Honeycutt and others, already having trouble here as they've went John Deere mode, or as you said, out there plowing snow. And as we're currently in a deep freeze here across the U.S., even historical snow here in the state of Florida, that is certainly a possibility. Is Diego Rodriguez is really starting to open it up on the competition as he now almost has a almost a 2 second advantage, excuse me, over Dawson Uferts in that second place position.
Just keeping an eye on that as well. As noticing a couple of these drivers, they break through the corners, watching Diego Rodriguez specifically right now. And another thing, two things they got to worry about here, especially tonight. Like you said, braking points is one of them, and getting the brakes, getting the brake temperatures up can cause brake fade, allowing these drivers not to be able to slow down for the corners. You see the right front of the 20 of Diego Rodriguez's brake rotor is getting kind of hot there. And the other key factor tonight is going to be keeping those splitters clean, especially when they go over the rumble strips.
Yeah, and those splitters, if those get damaged going over the rumble strips or the sausage patties, as I like to call them, that's going to really affect the aerodynamic balance of this race car. And while you were giving us that update, it looks like we've had 2 incidents on the racetrack. Andrew Teft, the HMFIC of the league, looks to have gone off track here. Let's send it back to the instant replay and see what went wrong for the driver of the 98. On the high bank portion of the racetrack here. It looks like he's going to come into the braking zone. You can see those rotors just glowing orange. And he kind of misses that corner there. Does a great job of staying out of the way. Does not make contact there. Looks like with the 55 at Truth Hoke. And there's the brakes coming into the equation once again, as you just mentioned, Ron. And while we're at it, Kinsley Smith has also had an incident. So let's go ahead and rewind time and take a peek here and see what happened to the 15 Napa Know-How man as he has his primary colors back on board this evening.
They got Slowly got a piece of that rumble strip coming out of the chicane down there, and it kind of got him in trouble. They got the car upset, and he applied throttle at the wrong time and took a little dosey-do down there, a little dance lesson on the road course.
Yeah, Kinsley Smith there, a similar issue, caught the back of that rumble strip there with the rear of that race car, and it really upset the balance, and around it went. As that's going to cost both these drivers some precious time out there on the racetrack as Kinsley Smith finds himself all the way back in that 14th place position, while Andrew Teft now still hemorrhaging a couple positions, but solidly inside the top 10 as he still holds on to that 8th place position as we transition back to the live side of things right here on Racers Elite Network.
Yeah, Lee Campbell's number 64. They had a similar issue in the chicane on the exit, and looked like he missed the exit and had to give up that time penalty, as well as Andrew Tupp there. A lot of people might not have known, or a lot of viewers seen Tupp stop there in the 98 and Yeah, maybe you stall it out, but most of the time, if they stop coming out of the chicane, they're usually getting a cut course penalty, and they have to serve a slowdown for a certain period of time before they can resume their race pace.
That's a great point. And that slowdown penalty, you have to bring that race car to a complete stop in order to serve that penalty. It's not a slowdown to 5 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour. That car has to come down to a 0 mile per hour threshold. Once you do that, then you can accelerate out there on the racetrack. And that's a great point to bring up there, Ron. Anytime you have to, stop, especially here at the Daytona Road Course, that's going to cost you precious time out there on the racetrack as Diego Rodriguez, we send it back up to the point now, continues to carry the torch here through 7 laps of the scheduled 45 distance this evening. With that being said, let's go ahead and take a quick look here at the race information this evening. Throw that up on the big screen so everyone can follow along at home with us. Now continue here to follow Diego Rodriguez here in the 20. Even with the board, started P1, continues to hold that position. In fact, no change inside the top 2 is the 20 in the 84 of Dawson and Matt Schlosser currently round out the money positions inside that top 3. And Ron, starting to see some of the fast cars starting to break away at the front of this field. The top 3, 4 have really kind of singled themselves out, and then you got to go all the way back to Zach Lockett in the 93 machine, who's currently 6 seconds off the pace. But you can start to see who the fasters are, or the road course ringers are in this series.
Most definitely, you can look at those at one aspect, but you also have to remember too, as a spectator watching these or commentating on these races, some of these drivers may have better experience in maintaining tire wear throughout the course of a race, especially this one in particular, because you're not just relying on your right side to hold the car down, or relying on that left rear to keep the car tight to the corner. You're relying on all aspects and all corners of the car to be able to maintain your race pace here, and maybe be able to potentially run down somebody who may potentially be faster right out of the gate.
Yeah, that's a great point. This race car, nothing like the cars of the past that we've seen throughout the course of NASCAR history. No more truck arms, no more 4-speed H-pattern transmissions or 15-inch tires. This race car here is an all brand new design. It has, that 5-speed sequential shift, so that gearbox is mounted virtually right by the rear axle of this race car. Independent multi-link rear independent suspension, and again, those 17-inch Goodyears offering more grip. But the way that you drive this car, the way that it's set up, to your point, is very different from the cars of the old. And this is where I really think this car shines here at this road course application. We've seen the speeds come up. We've seen just how hard you can attack the racetrack. Also, in that intensity, also turn it up a little. But this car, if you miss, it really makes you pay, as we've seen a couple drivers already snake bitten here in the early going.
Most definitely, and Diego Rodriguez making a great showing out of the run here so far, top qualifier, and they're getting that right out of the gate lap time down, showing these guys that he's here to mean business. And I mean, Diego comes out here and means business every week with Title Motorsports in the number 20, but that Ford is definitely fast here on the road courses. That he's definitely put in the practice time and made his efforts to be out front right now.
Yeah, in fact, he was one of the first racers in the session when it opened out there, getting that practice, that seat time, and at a racetrack like this where you're on, part of the speedway on the classic high banks, but then when you're carrying all that momentum into these really tight, confined braking zones, those reps, that practice out there is critical. And you can see clearly the guys that have really figured this place out, or put the time in to figure it out. Like, this guy here, Diego Rodriguez, he's already lurking, putting all kinds of pressure to the back of that 00 being piloted by Alan Bergen. I mean, he is just putting up a blistering pace right now as he took a peek there to the inside of that Toyota. And there, look at the dive bomb by the 20. Look how much further he is able to send that car into the corner. You can see those brake rotors just glowing orange compared to Alan Bergen, who really backed up that entry just doesn't necessarily have the confidence to send it in there like the 20 does.
I don't know if I'd say confidence to send it in as much as maybe allowing the leaders to have their own race and him not to interfere with it. You know, it's always a respect mutual ground thing with the lap cars on the racetrack for the most part, depending on the group that you're with, the diversity of skill level out there per se. You might not want to be the issue or be the reason as you see the double zero. They kind of got loose, so maybe a little bit of confidence issue for Bergen, but I wouldn't want to be, if I know that I'm having issues, I wouldn't want to be the one to take the leaders out.
Oh, and that's another great point as well. And we see that time and time again here. These drivers always very respectful, especially when they're not on the lead pace, not wanting to impact the outcome for some of these guys that are currently just putting up a blistering pace right now this evening. That's a great point. Certainly, Alan is one of those drivers who has high regards for all the competition out there on the racetrack as it continues to be the Diego Rodriguez show here at Daytona. Another driver that we talked briefly about, you mentioned Braden Honeycutt, currently in that 8th place position out of Elizabethtown, Tennessee. One of those drivers that we typically see near the front of the field. However, Honeycutt having his hands full here in the early going as he still runs in that 8th place position as he's had a couple off-course moments through this 9 laps thus far.
Yeah, back up to the 8th position for Honeycutt there in the 13 Toyota is looking pretty good there. He was back quite a ways. He had some issues early in about lap 1, lap 2. He was on the had to go down through the grass. I think he missed chicane a little bit there. He was able to come back and battle back for that, back up to the 8th spot. So that's a great run for him as he was making that move around Andrew Tepp there as we just started talking about him. So great run for him there. Like you said, back to respect as well. Andrew told him to give him a lane, and Brandon made his way around him unscathed, and he's going to pick up another spot. So we'll see if Brandon can work his way back to the front here. Looks like he started in about the 5th position, so he's working on climbing his way back up that mountain.
And that's something that Brandon really does so well, in my opinion. Even if trouble finds him on the racetrack, if he does make a random or erratic error on the racetrack, he is so good at recovering. He doesn't let it phase him. He keeps his composure, and he gets up on the wheel and gets those spots back. And as you mentioned, on the recovery drive right now, has already rebounded to 8th. Looks like we've had some more extracurricular activities on the racetrack as it's Josh Freed looks to have crashed or missed one of these braking zones. Let's go ahead and send it back now to that Racers Elite Instant Replay and see what transpired here. Take a look here at the 39 ride out of Philadelphia, PA. And it looks to be that same particular area that has already bitten a few of these drivers. He catches a piece of that curbing with the right rear, upsets the balance of the race car, and around he went.
I was looking to see what was going on between Truth Oak and Kirby Wainscott. I heard somebody say sorry, but I looked and everybody seems to be okay and rolling. So I imagine everything is maybe somebody got a bump and somebody a little loose, but everything looks to be okay in that area as well.
Yeah, great, paying attention to the radio chatter is on my side of the spectrum. I can't necessarily plug that data in because, well, sometimes emotions boil over out there on the racetrack, and we want to keep it clean on the broadcast side of things. But as you mentioned, Kirby Wainscott currently resides in that 17th place position. As we see a pass being made out there on the racetrack. Looks like Kirby started 16th here as you see him work into this braking zone. And again, a little bit of an elevation change there as well when you're making that hard left-hand turn. So the back end of that race car really wants to get light, and you have to be very ginger with that loud pedal when you do go to put it down. And if you overstep that boundary, it will come around on you as Kirby Wainscott looks to make some moves here and charge his way forward. Well, we have an opportunity. Let's go ahead and go through the field. We're going to send it back up to the point as it's been all Diego Rodriguez with the hot hand, who currently leads, has a 2.8 second advantage over Dawson Ulferts, who currently holds down that 2nd place position. However, he is in sight and he can't see him on the racetrack. And in fact, this battle for the for the lead may be starting to brew here as we continue to go through the field. There is Matt Schlosser piloting that CL1 Chevrolet Camaro as he comes through that chicane, up one position from where he started, currently rounds out your top three. Zach Lockett out of North Carolina. They had some snow with this historic winter storm as well this past weekend. Currently in fourth, having a great run thus far. And rounding out your top five, it's the Truth Hoke in that fifth place position. Look for the Nitrous Cowboy out of Boone to continue marching forward as Truth Hoke, the biggest mover of the race, another fellow North Carolinian, currently in the 55, currently resides in sixth. Driver we just mentioned not that long ago, Brandon Honeycutt, currently on the rebound and recovery drive, finds himself in seventh, continuing to gain those positions back as he continues to work his way through this treacherous braking zone. Dennis Kane going to round out your top eight. Andrew 10th, respectively, runs and ninth, and Kinsley Smith rounds out your top 10. Ron, starting to get some laps on these tires, and that fuel cell starting to, deplete. Where do you expect to see that pit window open here this evening?
I've seen a few drivers come in for pit stops, but looking at the way that things have been going and the drivers I've seen come in for pit stops, I believe those are more damage related, or maybe they went too hard early in the going and are looking at tires. But I would say we're probably looking about lap 20, 22, I think, maybe for a pit stop, maybe the way things are set for here.
That's what I was thinking as well. Sometimes you get out there and there's going to be a lot of different strategies as well. Fuel mileage can often be a factor in these races. As my son is trying to unplug my Ethernet controller, please don't do that. That would send me packing quick fast out of the production booth, and that would not be a good thing. But as I was saying before he decided to do that, fuel mileage can be a factor here, and a great strategy play as well, if that's something you choose to deploy over the course of this race. But speaking of fuel mileage, one driver that I'm pretty certain that may have that in the back of his mind is the 15 Napa Know-How man out of North Carolina, who currently runs in that 10th place position. As he currently sits out there on the racetrack. Ron, not a lot of pressure out there being applied to him right now. He has a handful of seconds to the first car in front of him and about 5 seconds back to the 42 of Leroy, who's currently in 11.
Yeah, Kinsley Smith definitely one that's not really pressured for position, and he just he stays calm, cool, and collected for the most part, unless he makes his own mistakes. He does have a little bit of damage to the right front of that machine. That Napa Auto Parts Napa Know number 15 is he's rolling around here. Looks like he almost made a mistake there, but was able to get the car back under him. Came out of the chicane there. It's they got this chicanes are kind of playing games with them, but Kinsley definitely looking fuel mileage probably is. It's like he's kind of hanging out and trying to probably take it easy until he can figure out what some of these other strategies are at the moment. Brandon Honeycutt's looking for shortcuts out there on the racetrack, apparently. Nothing too rainbow-esque out here, and looking back to see if I can figure out what kind. Oh, he took the shortcut. He skipped the chicane. That's where he thought he found the shortcut, and he had to give up that time that we talked about earlier. So we'll have to see. Looks like he's giving up the time needed, and he's going back under race pace here in the 13. We'll see if Brandon said he said he was talking and forgot about, so he distracted himself and forgot what part of the track he was on. Fun times happen when you're on the racetrack, and sometimes you don't realize where you're at certain times of the race, and discipline is key to maintaining your braking points and hitting all your marks to get into these corners just right and potentially be quick and out front, just like Diego Rodriguez is doing right now in that number 20 of Michigan's.
You're absolutely, you're absolutely right, and in my opinion, Brandon, one of the stars here in this series, and that just goes to show you the type of focus that you need to have. Simply said, I was having a conversation and I missed my mark. I mean, that's That's what these drivers are facing right now. But, like you said, the 20 has just been next level in that Ford Mustang. Great looking paint scheme on that machine this evening. You see the Michigan colors being displayed on it. And speaking of Michigan, I haven't been up to the Northeast in about 4 or 5 years now. That's where I'm from. And the brutal cold that has set in up there is absolutely, you know, unprecedented. I mean, you're talking temperatures in the negative digits, for daytime highs, where Diego's from. So hopefully he is staying warm. But I'll tell you what, his performance is HOT out there on the racetrack as he continues to really put up a pretty stout race pace. His best lap, Ron, a 155.19. His last lap, a 158.56. It continues to be one of the fastest cars out there on the racetrack.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I was looking here and it looks like Matt Schlosser's last lap was a 156.820. He is in third place, but that does not mean that he can't run down the race leader as long as Diego continues to kind of slow his pace down and hit his marks and stay consistent. It still may be trouble for Matt Schlosser, because I mean Schlosser can come forward, but if Diego's on pit road, so this might allow these guys to catch up a little bit, or maybe they'll follow him down pit road and follow that same strategy.
And as you just said, we have Diego now coming down pit road as he sends that Ford in for service. Also, the 84 is going to follow suit. Come one, come all. Matt Schlosser coming down pit road as well. And we can kind of see what the strategy is here, at least for the front runners. They're going to play follow the leader right now as they're all three cars currently in their pits, service underway. I assume 4 Goodyear Eagles, Dr. Feelgood's 2 Kansas Sunoco Racing Fuel, and they are down and underway. Is the 20 going to get the job done in the trenches on pit road? He's going to retain the lead, but the battle's really going to get tight now between the 84 and the 400 of Schlosser, as he is now just a couple car lengths back off of that Camaro.
Yeah, as you mentioned that, I was watching the pit road stop, and I'm not 100% for sure, and I'll have to go back and verify this, but I'm starting to think that Schlosser only took 2 tires during that pit stop.
Yeah, he seemed to really expedite the amount of time he had there on pit road. I did see the jack come up on the right side. However, I'm not sure I seen it on the left, so perhaps a 2-tire strategy move here to try and trim some of the fat off of the distance between himself and the 84, but ultimately the 20. We'll see how this affects his performance here. You would think in the early part of this run, the first couple laps, perhaps that car is probably not going to handle ideally. It could be a little bit free until those left side tires come up to temperature.
I went back and watched the pit stop for Schlosser, and I didn't even see the right side come up on that 400 car.
Timing and scoring is indicating that was a 2-tire stop, but that doesn't mean it's always right. And Schlosser, is a road course ace, a veteran in my opinion. I've had the ability to cover some of his other races and some of the other leagues throughout iRacing. And in fact, no tires, no problem. He thought about sending it on the high side of the racetrack. He's going back up top. He gets a great run through this portion of the racetrack. The 84 is going to try to come up there and take the line away from him as he does. Great execution there in the braking zone by both of those drivers as the 84 continues to fend off Schlosser. Currently right now, however, he is lurking and trying to dial up that pressure inside the cockpit of that 84 run.
Yeah, the battle per second is heating up, and it looked like Schlosser may have overdrove going into the last corner, but you have to make up for that ground. I'm starting to think that maybe there wasn't no tire stop for the 400 as maybe fuel only allowed him to close that gap, but he may pay for it here. But like you said, really great driver on the road courses, and I'll have to take your word on it. Kind of experiencing that and what his expertise is here now. But Zach Locke is going to take over the 4th position from Troy Thomas, as Thomas, I believe, is in pit road as Zach Lockett was on the racetrack as he was in the pits.
Yep, that's a great update there. So Lockett now inside the top 4. Currently 2 cars on pit road. Dennis Kane and Andrew Taft, who getting another notification that he may have had another incident on the racetrack as we're on board with Schlosser. And judging by the way this car is handling right now, I'm going to say that timing and scoring is wrong here. And he had a fuel-only stop So certainly that, as you said, that'll help cut some of the real estate, from that margin out there on the racetrack, but not having the benefit, the comfort and confidence of those four fresh tires that you could pay a little bit of a premium for, especially right now, while the two drivers in front of him have four fresh ones. Schlosser doing the best he can to hold on to it, but as you said moments ago, almost lost it there in that braking zone, and that's really where the tire deficit is going to show its face.
Most definitely a little bit of tire wear at all is gonna shake thousands of a second off your lap times, if not hundreds of thousands of seconds. And these drivers get.
Oh, the 84 missed it. Schlosser almost pile drived him. I can't believe it. Sorry to cut you off, as I was on board with him from the nose cam. Oh my! Woo!
That's a barn burner right there on him.
I apologize for cutting you off. We're gonna go old school mode here, ladies and gentlemen, and we're just gonna grab the rewind button. I just happened to go to the nose camera here at the right time because I was trying to watch him attack the braking zone, and the 84 whiffs it. He just has a mistake here. Slow it down here. Watch. You see the rotor's glowing on the 400. Now watch the 84. Tries to carry too much momentum through that portion. The back end washes out. He goes X Games mode as he uses that curbing for a jump, and Schlosser able to barely escape by. And I'll tell you what, Rod, if you watch it from the nose camera, it looks a lot closer than it does. I mean, watch this, folks. Yikes. I'll tell you what, Matt Schlosser has Lady Luck on his side. Rod, if that was me, my car would have been blown to pieces.
You'd have been using one of those great pit road faster pairs.
If I was fortunate enough to have one, but just because we're not racing restrictor plate style, or excuse me, tapered spacer, that's what we use now here at Daytona, doesn't mean the big one can't happen, as we almost had two race cars that were ready for the scrap heap if Schlosser, didn't have those couple of inches to work with.
Most definitely. And of course, Alfred seemed to have had four fresh Goodyears on there and not a lot of time to get heat in them. And he went maximum performance out of the chicane. And Schlosser knew that he didn't quite have the tire and he could get a little more rotation out of the car. And he rotated it where he needed to, as the 60 is under power. Looks like he was moving out of the way and giving the right away of the race to your race leaders.
Yeah, that's a great point. Now with that hiccup, that's now going to move Schlosser into that second place position. However, still has a lot of real estate to make up the racetrack, as just about 6 seconds up the road to Diego Rodriguez. And for all intents and purposes, Ron, that's like being in another county. I want to stay focused here on what we just witnessed on the racetrack. Typically, when, the cards are turned against you, what I mean is the Schlosser not having the advantage of those tires, typically we would see perhaps that driver, that Camaro being the one making that mistake out there on the racetrack. However, even though he didn't have the freshest shoes in town, he was still able to apply that much pressure out there on the racetrack to make another driver make a mistake like that. That's really impressive out of the 400, given the fact that, he has tires that are about 15 laps older than the competition in front of him.
Yeah, a lot of drivers going unnoticed right now, especially maybe the 55 of Truth Hope, because he's now up 8 spots. He started in the 15th position and still moving along here at the Misfit Racing number 55.
Yeah, the Hickory man, Truth Hoke in that 55 machine. This is a guy here that continues to put a lot of seat time in on the server, and he runs a lot of races here in Racers Elite. And like I was saying last week, ladies and gentlemen, if you want a place you can really call home, I mean, Racers Elite has all types of racing covered within the NASCAR spectrum. Trucks, we got it. Xfinity Series, check. Hey, you want multi-class? They have one of those on Mondays as well. I wish I could run it. I work until 2 a.m. on Mondays, but the point is, Truth Hoke is putting the seat time in, and you're absolutely right. When I think road course racing, he's not necessarily a driver that comes to mind right off the top of my head, but clearly he's doing something right, because he is the biggest mover out there on the racetrack, up 8 positions and currently in that 7th place position as he comes into this braking zone here, this winding, sweeping portion of the racetrack, and sends the 55 back out onto the speedway.
Yeah, and in the meantime, speaking of that, the 43 of Alex Tuff's Chicken Coop Racing's ride here took a nice little spill over the rumble strip by the pit exit, and he went out there in the grass. He was looks like he was gonna carve some sort of design out there for Daytona, maybe. Great, actually, it was a great miss there as well as he cut back across the track in front of looks like the 00 of Bergen as well, but I think he come back across behind him, kind of split the gap, if you will.
Yeah, and again, not this is just the byproduct of how difficult and how treacherous this road course can be, especially if you don't have the experience, the seat time, out there at this configuration. Historically, this is a track that we really haven't seen on the NASCAR schedule up until recent times. Traditionally you would have Sonoma, Watkins Glen. Those were the two featured stops on the circuit, and then in more of the modern era, the last 10 years or so, we've seen the addition of additional road courses, the Roval, and now you really have to put more emphasis on road racing. The point being, this is not a racetrack where you're just gonna, unless you have a ton of road racing experience, it's really difficult to not practice here and jump in and think you're gonna figure this thing out. 45 minutes before the race starts. That's just a tall ask, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. As Curtis Ecker missed a braking point and extended a corner for himself, but I was looking at a couple other things here, and it looks to be that Diego Rodriguez has taken back over as the fastest lap of each gear on here, except for last time. Brandon Honeycutt looking for 156.431 on his last lap, and your race leader Diego Rodriguez to 157.165. So it's like he's kind of either manipulating traffic or kind of just watching to see how everybody else is running and maybe saving a little bit of tire here. Maybe this next stop will be a shorter one for your race leader.
He's probably gonna take a note of that, what Schlosser did, and able to kind of maintain I don't want to say the same pace, but he's not as far off as I thought he would be. To your point, he mentioned he had that new hot lap. But last time by, Rodriguez went a 157.17 to Schlosser's 156.54. I really thought we would see a lot more fall off. I thought it was going to be at least maybe a second and a half, a second and 3/4 off the pace. Schlosser actually under a second off the pace of Diego Rodriguez, and you're right, he could certainly take a page out of the 400s playbook on the next stop, knowing that, hey, the fall off might not be as bad as what we thought it was, especially if you're taking care of those tires out there on the racetrack.
Most definitely, speaking of tire wear, it looks like Brandon Honeycutt had some issues with the rumble strip. When they tried to correct the car, he looked like there was a little bit of net code between him and a fellow driver out there, and kind of straightened or messed up the right front a little bit, but he's still managing to continue going here and trying to adapt and overcome the damage and a little bit of the rumble strip issues that he's had. It's kind of cursed him for the majority of this event, even though he's running back up in the 7th position. The rumble strips are still causing him some havoc here at the Daytona road course.
I think that's been a similar story for most of the drivers here. Those rumble strips have just really upset and aggravated this next gen car. Anytime you've even thought about breathing on them, as we see Honeycutt now attacking that portion of the racetrack. Also getting a report here that Ryan Coker may have had a incident on the racetrack as well. Let's take it back now to the replay. And I think, here we go. Here's the 24. I think this is going to be coming off of the speedway into this very high-speed braking zone. You can see the rotors already lit on that Camaro. And let's see if it's deja vu all over again here. Oh, this right in front of Matt Schlosser, who again has a big moment in that braking zone. I'll tell you what, Rod, that section of the racetrack has not been good to the 400, as that's probably really spiked his blood pressure a couple times now, As you see the 24 there, just lose it. The back's going to come around as the 84. Remember, he's the one that really lost a ton of track position there about 5 to 6 laps ago, as the 24 does a good job keeping that race car locked down out of the preferred line, and the 84 able to keep on going as well. But still, another big moment there. Near miss for Matt Schlosser once again, Ron.
Yeah, Schlosser looks like he's back about 6.5 seconds. Unfortunately, having to give up a lot of track position as far as incidents happening, but maintaining his forward travels here following Diego Rodriguez. And I've been kind of studying Diego Rodriguez here the past little bit, and I think one of the main factors and keys here, we're seeing a lot of people have issues with these rumble strips, and I don't believe I've really seen Diego Rodriguez hit many of them unless he's in the chicanes. So I'm looking at that potentially being a key factor to how and why your race leader is Diego Rodriguez.
Yeah, it almost seems like here at this particular racetrack, those rumble strips are not your friend at all. I know in cars of the past, and even in this car at a place like Watkins Glen, my home track, at least from where I grew up, you can use those rumble strips out there to help this car transition right and left. However, it seems here at this configuration, I don't know if those rumble strips just the offset to the strip to the racing surface is more abrupt, but it just seems like anytime this car makes any type of contact with them, it really sends you for a ride.
It kind of puts me in mind of when iRacing first brought the cushion to the dirt side, and they built the cushion a lot, and you could take the dirt legend car and drive it off into the corner, and you could park the rear bumper up on it. That would just spin the car out.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that is a possibility. Obviously, the dirt track side of things, the cushion, a lot different from what we're doing right here now on the asphalt side of things, but still a great analogy. I just can't remember a time, up here in the booth where I've noticed, oh, here we go again, right in front of the leader now. The 20 gets a dose of what's been served to the 400, and I believe that was Tef, the Alex version,
You are correct.
who flow ridered right round, right in front of the leader, and he's going to send that Toyota down pit road. Let's go ahead and go back to manual replay mode here. And take a look at what happened here moments ago. And again, this just feet in front of the current leader of the race. Send it up to the eye in the sky here to the chopper camera. Focusing here on that Toyota being piloted by Alex Teft. And again, look at that. Look how violent that car launched up in the air from just nicking that curbing. I mean, he is getting some air. Now watch this. As that car spins helplessly out of control, you're going to see your leader come by here. There he is. There's your leader. If he was a little bit further up the road, that could have been a disastrous outcome potentially for Diego Rodriguez, but I just can't get over this, Ron. I mean, just watch how this 43 reacts here initially, and it just catches a little bit of this curbing.
Yeah, it's definitely a hard
reaction.
Very, very violent, and unfortunately for him, that had to happen. I'm pretty certain that I believe he may have used his faster priority, so he may be waiting out these repairs. It actually looks like his status has just been changed to out, so that contact right there will potentially be the end of Alex Teff's race in that 43.
That's very unfortunate, but I have it slowed down here. Going on board with him, look at that car launch up on two wiggles, slams back to the racing surface, still doesn't have control. I mean, it looks like he's out there on a motocross, going through the whoop section on a dirt bike. Just absolutely insane how that 43 reacted for just a minimal contact there with that curbing. That is just incredible. There you see the 20 go by out his front windshield. As we now cycle back to the live things right here on Racers Elite Network. And want to thank everyone for stopping in, joining us for the ride here this evening. So we're about 22 laps to go in this one. Is everyone still trying to chase down Diego Rodriguez is it's been all him from the drop of the green flag. Currently leads over Matt Schlosser in second, Dawson Ulfertz in third, Zach Thomas, or Zach Lockett, and Troy Thomas round out your top five as they currently run right now, Ron.
I was watching Diego Rodriguez here. Like I said, I don't think he's really been hitting any of these rumble strips. Everything's been pretty perfect and clear. Good, good up front running here, keeping the nose clean and being able to good accident avoidance too, with having to, kind of miss the tough Alex version, as you called it through the 43. It seems like he kind of has everything calm, cool, collected, and under control. Even it seems like he's got this entry point into this chicane. I don't know if you caught it right there, but it seems like he's bumping the outside wall at the same spot as he rotates into this corner.
Yeah, that's a great point there. As you were just mentioning that, it looks like, well, on our end, timing and scoring wanted to go over some of the cars, had other plans, and wanted to talk about a couple cars that are no longer in the race. We have some retirees, and that's going to be the 39 of Josh Freed out of Philadelphia. Has put it on the hauler, currently being scored in that 18th place position. The 00 of Alan Bergen out of Missouri also decided to retire early, call it an evening here on the road course side of things. And just most recently, Alex Teft as well. Looks like he's going to get credited for a 16th place position if everything stays how it does right now with 21 laps to go. Kirby Wainscott currently out there on the racetrack. Ooh, he just locked those tires up. And just as I went through that, Ron, it looks like Alex decided to put it back out there in competition, or is thinking about it at least. We could maybe possibly have 16 cars still out there on the racetrack. As we send it now to that 10th place position, what do you got from Kensley Smith, who currently runs in P10?
Kinsley running in P10 looks like started in the 14th position, so he's having a stellar run. He's up 4 spots. Looking a little bit off the pace of the leader, about 5 seconds in total off the race leader last time by. But then again, like we mentioned earlier, it comes down to comfort level and how far they want to drive off into the corner. And Kinsley just out looking for a good finish here, and he's continuing to move forward. So hopefully a good finish for that driving streaming number 15. And looking at the standings right now, he's second. Well, actually tied with Brandon Honeycutt. So right now, it looks like Honeycutt would have the next points or the points position to take over. But that's all going to come down to the wash here. It's just about still half of this race left to go. So a lot could change before this is all said and done.
Yeah, that's a great point. And just as soon as I cut to the 15, I invoked the broadcaster's curse on him as he sent it Dukes of Hazzard style, with a couple of donuts out there on the racing surface. Didn't hit anything and grabbed a gear, got it going again, and just blew the braking zone right in front of the 84 as he parks it just about on top of that sausage patty. And again, that particular spot on the race course continues to conduct all of, or most of, the mayhem here on the road course side of things. However, Kinsley Smith continues to run in that 10th place position. Almost if you blinked, you would have missed it, but that happened just as I cut coverage to the 15, who continues to charge on in that Camaro. A lot of these, again, that spot of that racetrack, Ron, continues to produce issues. Let's go ahead and take a look here again what happened to Kinsley Smith moments ago. We now send it back.
Definitely had the saw out there on the coming off that bus stop to get that car to break free. It was pretty high center down there.
Yeah, it certainly is. As we go on board with him now, as he attacks this section of the racetrack, you can see right here the car already just going out to lunge on him. Just gave up grip in the rear. And he kind of gets it locked down. You can see those rotors going. And then he sends it up on top of the curbing. Gets that car wound down just in time, because there's the 84. If you remember, we got into coverage here. He was right there, I believe, in that second place position at one point in time. But even with couple misfortunate events out there on the racetrack, those close moments, and that big spin in front of Schlosser has still been able to hold on to a top three. So solid effort out of Dawson as well, as Tinsley Smith continues to charge on here after that incident on the racetrack.
We're going to see what's currently going on the racetrack. Looks like everybody's pretty kosher with their positions. Not any passes recently that I'm aware of than what we just mentioned there. Watching Ryan Coker had some issues on lap 23, which would have been his lap 23. But he's been able to bounce back and continue to roll forward here in that 14th position in the 24.
Yeah, thank you for that. And, one thing that road course racing does, especially under green flag conditions, with those pit stops, it really spaces out the competition. So, I mean, right now, some of these guys appear like they're running, independent time trials, as there's a good amount of space between some of these cars on the racetrack. While they're pretty strung out. I mean, let's go ahead and look at some of the mishaps that we've missed here on the broadcast side of thing as we were breaking down strategies. Here's an incident with Alan Bergen. This may have administered the final blow to him as to why he potentially brought it down pit road. As he's actually coming out of the pits here. We focus in on that 00. Great looking paint scheme on that Toyota. Oh, he catches a piece of the grass there on the exit road, and he sends it into the pit, that access barrier like a howitzer, and decided that was it, enough for him. And then you mentioned again Brandon Honeycutt as well. I believe we have this one queued up and ready to go as well. And that's going to be that 13 machine. And again, it's going to be a similar story here. We've seen this play out a couple times already, Ron. And that car did not want to whoa up. He did not, however, get any air, didn't go X Games mode, as he completely missed the sausage patties. But another dicey moment there in that particular sector of the racetrack. And I believe we also have the Ryan Coker incident that you mentioned as well. So we go ahead now.
Must have missed something there. Or missed part of the course. He got a 6.4 second black flag, so he had a definite slowdown. So I guess he probably cut the chicane.
You hit the nail right on the head. As soon as we went back to the racetrack, he cut the chicane and then looped it.
Meanwhile, on the live side of things, Matt Schlosser has came to pit road, and he did loop it there. He didn't exactly loop it, but he went for a drift session off of one of the turns, and has now made a pit stop. And I imagine that pit stop probably gonna take 4 tires and fuel, and we'll be waiting to see when Diego Rodriguez comes down for his next stop.
As we cut the coverage to Matt Schlosser, thank you for that update, Ron. Matt Schlosser, definitely 4 tires, 2 Kansas Sunoco Racing fuel that time, as he is down and away, back out there on the racetrack. So this is important to take note of, as this could play a factor here in the closing moments of this race. So the 400 pit stop complete, 4 tires on that race car, fuel in the cell, currently runs 35 seconds behind Diego Rodriguez in that 3rd place position. Schlosser last down on lap 27. Both cars in front of him on lap 14. So that's going to be Diego Rodriguez and Dawson in that 84. However, the big thing here is just the amount of time between these 2 cars. It's going to be interesting to see how long it takes Diego Rodriguez to get on and off pit road, to see potentially, as you alluded to earlier, pull a play out of Schlosser's playbook and send it with just fuel on this final stop to try to maintain some of that gap out there on the racetrack.
Most definitely. I was looking to see. It looks like the track temperature's increased, and we're like a little over 100 degrees right now. It's 100.5. Typically, not really a unusual aspect of Daytona in general, but right now I'd imagine it probably wouldn't be very characteristic of it this time of year.
No, certainly not this time of the year, as cold as it's been here in the state of Florida, unseasonably cold. But as you were saying, hey, this is a simulator. There's a lot of different ways you can configure the weather, especially with more recent updates on the iRacing side of things. As you said, that track temperature, as we throw that up on the big screen, north of the century mark, 101 degrees down there on the asphalt. Ambient air temperature holding steady at 75. It's rather humid as well at 75%. So that track temp continues to climb. What does that mean? This racetrack is going to act more like a cheese grater on these tires as well. Great heads up on that call, Ron.
Another thing that while you were mentioning all that, I was looking into wind direction and wind speed, and that's kind of on the northern mark as well. It's up like 14, 16 mile an hour wind gusts in northeast most of the day here throughout the course of this race, and it makes me wonder if I don't really see it playing a big factor on these cars in general, just because of the fact we have these high banks that are kind of keeping the cars out of that wind tunnel per se. But there's got to be a certain portion of the track that's really hitting hard, and I'm starting to wonder if that chicane exit is one of them.
It very well
As you
could
race
be.
through the road.
Yes, your leader now on pit road, Diego, coming down for perhaps a very crucial pit stop here. Let's go ahead and see what the call is here as he comes down pit road. We'll go back to that conversation about the wind here momentarily. Clean stop into his box, executes all four tires inside the lines. Crew can go to work as they come over the wall here. Not seeing any jack movement, fuel only, down and away. You're a psychic, I'm telling you. You're a race whisperer. Ron called that one 20 laps before he even thought about it.
I was kind of on board with what was going to happen there, but I was also being kind of up in the air about it because Schlosser was trying to make up that ground. He had to go get four tires and like I said, some fuel here earlier, and he got some Sunoco race fuel put in that car so he could get that go-go juice rolling. And that interval now is just under 4 seconds, and Schlosser's putting those new tires to use. So we'll see how well Diego Rodriguez has managed his tires on his last run, because it's really gonna show now with Schlosser on fresh tires, because he's taking over the second spot from Dalton Alvers.
Yeah, that's a great spot. And to match Schlosser's point, when you pull off a strategy move like that, if you leave enough time on the board, someone else can say, hey, you know what? I think I might want to try that too. And that's not to say, that wasn't the 20s plan all along, but certainly when you deploy something aggressive like that and it works in your favor, other teams have time to see that and then can incorporate that into their battle plan. And with that stop, Matt Schlosser still has a little bit of real estate, but we're not talking, a quarter of the racetrack anymore. Instead of being, 20, what was it, 22, 23 seconds, now it's only 3.64, and now it's the reverse. Schlosser has the fresher tires. Diego's on those Sunday slippers. We're going to see how this plays out. Ron, this could be a good battle coming down to the end between the 20 and the 400.
Yeah, this is definitely a league that allows for a little bit more error per se when it comes down to your tire wear. I did notice they allow 5 sets for this race, and we do, both you and I both know that if you come down and take all 5 sets, you're probably not going to get very far. You might have a good solid finish, but if you happen to flat spot a set, do a wreck, or an accident happens in front of you, lock up the tires, you can go in and get a set, and you can be right back in this just as much as you were out of it at that point in time. And I know another note we haven't touched on, we keep going back to these replays and showing these instances happening on the racetrack, but we are only doing local yellows here, so you'll see a flag pop up for an incident in certain key areas of the racetrack, but there is no full course yellows here tonight.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to keep it lean, mean, and green, at least officially here as far as that whole racetrack is concerned. But like Ron said, if there's a business being done on the racetrack outside of normal racing, we will have those local cautions. However, that's only a slowdown in a particular section of that racetrack. Once you clear that zone, you can then resume wide open green flag racing out there on the racetrack. And getting back, I want to shift gears really quick, throw it in reverse. You mentioned something that I think is really important for the viewers to know. The entire allotment here is on the higher side. You're absolutely right. However, we don't incorporate, the modern rules in stage racing here. So with the way that these races typically across a lot of the series always tend to run with limited cautions or and sometimes caution free, you don't necessarily have that opportunity as a driver to go down there and really utilize all those tires, even though you do have them at your disposal. So it kind of forces you, just by how the trends of these races are, to you to be really good at saving your tires and maximizing performance out of the long run versus being able to go down pit road, grab four, burn them off until the next stage comes out, and then you go down pit road again and reset. It really changes the way that you have to strategize and think about how you attack these races.
Yeah, that goes back to the we actually are in stage races with the Thursday night league that I was running before, and I had it timed out where I had to coast from turn 3 and 4 to the start finish line to have just one lap of fuel left for that stage caution for me to get to pit road.
Yeah, those are intense nail-biting moments, aren't they?
Yeah, it is because you can sit there and I can watch the fuel diminish and know that the tank's getting empty and not knowing if we're gonna have a caution if the stage is gonna get extended. It's nerve wracking sometimes.
It is, especially if you don't have a clutch pedal aside. And I haven't had a clutch pedal until recently. The steering wheel I was using was ancient all the way back from 2005 up until about 6 months ago. And if I didn't remember to assign a clutch bind to my wheel, I didn't have the option to coast like that because I couldn't disengage the clutch. But great job on your part having that awareness, knowing that hey, you might have to save some fuel and being able to stretch it that far. Making sure you're able to get back to pit road, get some go fast back in the tank. As we take a look here on that Mustang, piloted by Dennis Kane here in that ninth place position, having a solid run in that Mustang inside the top 10 as he currently runs about, last time by, ran a 2:06.52 out there on the racetrack. So clearly something went off course out there for the 4, but didn't cost him any positions out there on the racetrack, Ron.
Yeah, I was looking to see if there's maybe somebody I haven't mentioned too much about, and let's say one driver we haven't talked about too much tonight. Be Troy Thomas in the 3, that Pit Boss sponsored, the Pit Boss Dollar General Mountain Dew sponsored 3. Looking to have a pretty decent run here so far. And that 3 is kind of maintained his own pace. And Brandon Honeycutt in the 13 has also made his way back to the top 5.
Yeah, and there's 2 drivers right there. It seems like every time I talk about them, something bad happens.
Cameras off.
And it happened earlier to both of them, Brandon Honeycutt, Troy Thomas, and in fact Kinsley Smith as well. As I had just got to cut to him, he was spinning, hanging on for dear life. But you're right, the Nitrous Cowboy has silently had a very strong run in that TRD powered machine. Great looking paint scheme, I might add, on that number 3 machine. I got to find out who painted that car. That looks really good. I love the colors, the candy apple and the metallic flake in there. That's a great looking machine. He started in that 6th place position, and he's even with the board. And compared to some of how the Knights have went for some of these other drivers, I think Troy is out there doing a great job. He's taking what the racetrack gives him. He's racing the racetrack. He's not letting the pace beat him per se. He's doing what he needs to do out there. He's managing well. He's checking all the boxes, and if he can hold on for another 13 laps here, I think he's going to come out of here with a very successful performance here on the road course side of things.
Yeah, most definitely, and maintaining a ground like that's a key note for me when I get into a car. I set myself what I feel is a realistic goal, and I go out there, and if I my main goal is to try to get that, and if we're struggling, I kind of try to go, okay, sit back, gotta get myself get composure, caught back up, figure out my points, my braking points, entry and to each corner, my exits, make sure I get my throttle percentages down right, make sure I don't spin the tires. You want to get that grip and the bite to hook the car up, get out of the corner. You don't want to lose any forward bite or forward momentum as you leave the corners. And once you get that down, then you get back in your rhythm. And that's the biggest part of these, being rhythmic with your car and knowing what you feel. and be able to drive out of the field of the seat. And a lot of guys, they you got to use two visual points here because we're being a little more realistic here. This is maybe a lower end tier as far as what people have here. I know butt kickers and stuff exist, and guys get out there and they can feel the rhythm of the car, the back end of the car moving around. But being able to put what you feel into what you see is another aspect of it there to be able to keep these cars going in a forward direction.
Yeah, that's certainly what Troy Thomas is doing. Is we jump on board with him out of the nose GoPro, and you can see up in the distance that 13 machine who you mentioned, Brandon Honeycutt. And like I said earlier in the race, Ron, you mentioned it. Even when trouble finds the 13, oh my God, no, Troy Thomas, I am so sorry.
Well,
Was I just saying moments
again,
ago?
once again, it was a great catch. It's a great hands moment of the race. He was able to gather it back up, and it didn't get away from him too bad. He's still going to hold on to that sixth position.
Yeah, I got worried. I seen that car doing things it shouldn't have been doing out of the corner of my eye, and we're just gonna roll back the tape here, and you guessed where it happened, the disaster zone out here on the racetrack. That car just did not want to slow down, and he went up, almost up and over there, and in fact, Andrew Teff locked up the tires coming in there. So perhaps that particular section of the racetrack, with the impact of that invisible force, the wind, with the taking rubber down and that track temperature continuing to increase, that's really becoming the slick spot there. And before that moment, we were talking about Brendan Honeycutt, and the driver that just always seems to have a solution to all the problems and challenges that you can face on the racetrack. I mean, this guy has been out there in the sand more than David Hasselhoff this race, and yet finds himself back to where he started in fifth. That's just an incredible drive by the 13 rod.
Yeah, most definitely the 13 Honeycutt powering in the driving extreme Toyota, and tell you what, there's only a hand. I'd say there's about a little over a handful of Toyotas out there, but those three are the only three remaining right now, except for I think Kirby Wainscott back in the 15th position on the last car on the lead lap, but that's also Toyota. But there's three of them that are really trucking along together here as they roll around the speedway.
Yes, certainly. And while those Toyotas are the few and the proud out there, there's not many of them out there in competition as Kirby Wainscott comes up and punts the 24 of Ryan Coker.
An apology has been averted.
That was that was, and again, here's another situation. I know we keep saying it over and over again, folks, but that's what just seems to happen here in the Bermuda Triangle on the racetrack. And I mean, let the tape speak for itself. Again, these cars just for some reason do not want to stop coming in to this portion of the racetrack, and the 10 is just going to carry it in there with a ton of mojo. Going to send it up here to the eye in the sky. Now here's that speed. This is at full speed. You can see the 10 just will not slow down. Comes up, punts the back of the 24, has to overshoot that corner, get that car wound up, and then puts it back out there on the racetrack. You see there the Colonel going on, the Colonel was the old paint scheme on the 10, as he has some new colors there on that Toyota. As I often remember Kirby driving that KFC ride. I have to remember
so
that.
He's in the Racers Elite Toyota now.
Yeah.
That very holographic looking number 10 is. I always enjoy those hollow foil numbers myself. I'm a big fan of it. The numbers on my dirt late model are the reflective safety white.
Yeah, I like how that that particular type of paint and font look on the race car as well. That's a great point, Ron. So not only do you sim race, but you're actually a real life dirt racer as well. While we got time, give us a rundown. What type of cars do you run, and how long you been doing it for?
Well, I've been doing it off and on since 2012. I was in the service, so that was a different kind of experience. So we come in, we race a little bit, then we go back out and go back to work more or less and make the money to do it again. But We race dirt street stock. It's like a mid '80s Monte Carlo, and then we also have it's kind of like a demon child more or less. It's a maker of two chassis. We got like a '05 blue gray rocket, which the blue gray was preference to the front end of the car, but now it's a kryptonite vision at the front end and a rocket back half. So now I've given that car the name the Rocket Donkey.
Hey, thanks for that. And I got to ask you $1 million question. And I ask a lot of the real life drivers this as well. How does iRacing translate to the real on the track experience? Is it similar? Is it horribly off? What's your take on it?
They've got a lot of similarities, and there's a lot of places where they're different. Um, a lot of things come down to where setups don't really correspond because they can't get the geometry and the numbers to match up because the engineering behind the simulator versus the engineering we have in the geometry for the front end and the rear end of the cars just doesn't comply. It throws the simulator for loops. It doesn't quite understand how to compute the numbers that we put into them.
Understand it? And there's going to be some margin, but overall, it is iRacing far superior to anything else out there, software based. This is truly the most genuine experience you're going to get uh, anywhere out there in the digital realm. And it's and speaking of that, we've actually had a change at the lead, Rod. Matt Schlosser, the grinder, has wore down the 20 of Diego Rodriguez. He has deflated his wheels and pulled the air out of his sails and now finds himself in second place position with 9 laps to go. Outside of that, the 400 has lit the afterburner and has now swung the tables to where he has almost now a 7-second lead over the 20.
Yeah, look at the potential here of what this final pit stop that it comes down to fuel mileage and what they have left in the tank to get done with this race. Because I'm not certain. Because Truth Oak just came down pit road. Kinsley Smith's been on pit road. Dawson Aldrich has been down pit road here recently. So it's gonna be trying to see when. Looks like Honeycutt's been down pit road, and I don't see where the race leaders have been down. So I'm curious if they've been saving fuel or if their pit stops earlier have allowed them not to have to make this final stop if it's gonna be that tight.
I'm taking a bet here that Diego Rodriguez, especially, or I shouldn't say Diego Rodriguez especially, um, but I'm thinking that he may have enough juice in the tank to go the distance as he was down on lap 29. Matt Schlosser 2 laps before on 27. 8 laps remaining on the board. Remember, we're not going to expect any full course yellows here, local cautions only. So we know we're not going to have a full course yellow here to help us save some fuel. You can't necessarily bank on a local caution. That's really not going to do much in the fuel mileage department anyhow. Maybe a hundredth here or there, but nothing really you can translate, to actually use out there on the racetrack. I think one of these guys at the front perhaps tries to roll the dice. That is yet to be seen. But to your point, the 84 has been down pit road. We know he can go the distance as he was just down moments ago. Braden Honeycutt has been on pit road. Truth Hope, who was in 8th, has been on pit road. So we're just going to have to see who has the right game plan, the right strategy, and ultimately who winds up in victory lane right here on Racers Elite Network.
It's gonna be interesting to see how this plays out coming down to the wire. With these guys looking, unfortunately, looks like our interval for our race lead has been cut down to either Matt Schlosser or Diego Rodriguez, being about 8 seconds back. So that lead's been extended a little bit more for Schlosser now, as it was over Diego. Here is Matt Schlosser's taking the lead and kind of running away with it at this point.
Yeah, you can see here how he is widening the gap as we throw up the time delta up there on the screen. You can see the type of pace that Schlosser is now putting up as he has quickly reversed the tides here. And now he's the guy that currently has the rocket ship out there on the racetrack. And again, no one really, I don't think, has an answer, for the drivers inside the top 3 tonight. I mean, it's just been a phenomenal performance. Some great road racing, some great racecraft, out there, by, Schlosser, Rodriguez, and Dawson in that 84. Those guys have really been the elite out here so far this evening with just 7 laps to go. But, one person I got to tip my hat to that I really haven't talked about that much, and he's in the McDonald's ride in the 98, Andrew Teft. Even with, you know, the challenges that he's faced out there, it hasn't been, a squeaky clean race for him. He's had some moments out there on the racetrack like most of these drivers had. Somehow, some way, finds himself into that 5th place position. Even, you know, at one point in time, he was scored all the way back in 12th or 13th place position, and yet here he is, knocking on the back door of the top 5. I mean, another case of another example of just getting after it when adversity strikes, and just getting those positions back out there on the racetrack. Tep sitting there in 5th.
Most definitely is. You're talking about him getting up there in position. Teft holding on to start in the 8th spot, is up to 5th, so he's definitely moving forward as he continues throughout the course of the event here, getting down to the wire with 6 laps remaining.
6 laps to go here on Racers Elite Network. Matt and Ron up at the Tony Trapasso Memorial broadcast booth as Matt Schlosser clearly was applying some patience and due diligence out there on the racetrack, saving his equipment for the right time to let that thing absolutely take off and fly. And that car is a bad banshee right now as he quickly has checked out a Dodge, now over 12.3 seconds back to the driver. That seemed like he had a one-way path to the victory lane here at Daytona. Matt Schlosser didn't take tires earlier in the race. He let that car perhaps sacrifice some performance, some time out there on the racetrack to execute his plan, which was to take that set later in the run. Rodriguez tried to do something similar. However, Schlosser was able to just perhaps execute that plan a little bit better, as now he has suddenly flipped the tides, the tables, and the script on Rodriguez, as he now finds himself 12 and a half seconds back versus, about 20 laps ago, when it was completely opposite. Diego seemed to have the clear advantage as Schlosser was left in the weeds. But Ron, nonetheless, here we are. It's never over until it's over.
Yeah, it's never over until it's over, and Matt Schlosser is definitely even the odds out a little bit. He's got a 13.5-second advantage now, roughly 13.25-second advantage over Diego Rodriguez, title winner, sports number 20. But that 400 looking strong out front. The Interstellar SRV Chevy looking like he's got the place. We got the victory lane in his sights, but he's still got a few more laps to go to hang on to this.
Yeah, he certainly doesn't. A lot can happen in 5 laps here on the racetrack as it pops off right in front of Diego Rodriguez again. And once again, it's the 24 Ryan Coker. Sometimes you just get another car on the racetrack that you're like magnets. You just attract to specifically in particular spots out there on the racetrack. And that zone has been a hotbed for Coker and Rodriguez at times, as another dicey moment for the 20. He continues to run in that 2nd place position. Speaking about exciting moments out there on the racetrack, getting a report that Kirby Wainscott, that holographic wrap number 10 machine, may have went off course here. Let's throw it back here to the replay. As the replay picks this up, he has already found himself off the preferred lane. Oh, he brings it back onto the racetrack. The curbing bites again. It just snookers him, sends him right into the pit road access road barrier there. He's going to catch a piece of it, takes that car right to the shot, right to the face, grabs the gear, loops it around and goes. And again, the question comes back. What is it with the curbing here at the road course that just hates this next gen?
Yeah, most definitely. Well, watching Matt Schlosser continue to lead here, I imagine he's probably going to pull this one in. They do have a session time limit on this, and they're going to definitely beat that done here within the next 5 laps. So it's going to be 4 to go here soon as the 400 works his way. Trying to find him on the racetrack here. Spicane on the back straightaway, or front straightaway, excuse me. He's going to bring this down to. We got a pit stop for Matt Schlosser.
Well, this certainly changes everything. I didn't think Schlosser was going to have to come down pit road. He has a 15-second lead. Now we see why he had the flamethrowers lit on that Camaro. He's in the box. Let's follow Diego Rodriguez. Here he comes into that braking zone. No mistakes here. The 20 has to be perfect. He gets clean entry there. He makes the corner. He's back on the loud pedal. Let's go back to Schlosser. Schlosser now on the exit road. However, Diego Rodriguez is going to get by him. It has now opened up a gap of over 5.35 seconds over the 400 of Schlosser. Diego Rodriguez says, hey, not so fast. I got a little something for you. A little voodoo, and here we go. Flip rolls once again, and Diego now has the advantage and first place.
Yeah, it's going to be quite an interesting way to see how this goes down, especially coming down to the wire with these drivers with Schlosser having to make the pit stop, and now things, like you said, roles are reversed, but the only issue is I didn't see Schlosser take even right sides for that short stop, and that could potentially be a game changer as well. Well, especially seeing the end of this.
Well, now I'm starting to think that Rodriguez is not going to have enough fuel because there was 2 laps different between Rodriguez and Schlosser. Well, you add those 2 laps, take off what we have on the board, that's not getting you to the natural checkered flag here. So, has Diego Rodriguez been that far off of Schlosser's pace because Schlosser knew he was going to have to come down pit road and he was just sending it for all it was worth? Or has Diego purposely dialed it back this entire stint to try and make a fuel mileage gamble here to the checkered flag? This is why I'm telling you, even though, sometimes we don't have that close quarters combat, high octane action on the racetrack, it doesn't mean we can't have a thrilling finish, especially here in Racers Elite. And I am on my tippy toes trying to figure out who is going to be the first one to cross the finish line here as we currently watch the 20 knock another lap off the board. Gentleman's hand-shaped lap in the air. Does he have enough fuel to go the distance?
Definitely the question here. We know Schlosser definitely has enough to go the distance here. Still kind of floating around that 4-second gap mark. And lap time wise, last time by, of course, that pit stop playing around. We'll see what Schlosser's time is this time across the line. He's back just a little bit now. It looks like that last lap with the pit stop was 2:11.822, but Diego Rodriguez had to make up that ground with that 1:57.838. So he kind of gained the ground on him. So we don't know what Schlosser's lap time really is at the moment. See how competitive this is going to be at the end.
Yeah, this is. I'm on board right now with Diego Rodriguez to see if he is short shifting. Oh, yeah, he is definitely saving fuel as he completely skip shift. He went from 3rd to 5th. As he comes now barreling down the backstretch, he is off the throttle here way, way early, clutching. He is trying to go the distance. Tachometer showing 300 as we're on board. Diego's going to go full-blown high-stakes Las Vegas mode and try to win it on fuel mileage. That's the game plan out of the 20 cam, Ron.
Going to be interesting to see how it plays out in the next couple of laps. Unfortunately, I have some prior engagements I'll have to attend to, so I'll have to catch up with you on that one later.
Hey, not a problem. As we often say, real life always comes first, and I do appreciate you joining me up here on Thursday nights. It almost got ugly there for Rodriguez. He almost let that sausage patty send that car X Games mode, and Ron Schlosser is back on the initiative. He is running him down that lead now under 3 seconds, 2.70, as we sit here with just 2 laps to go. Popsicle sticks in the air from Daytona. As Diego Rodriguez continues to lead with fuel mileage and that fuel level depleting. Perhaps only vapors left in that fuel cell on that Ford Mustang. Trying to pull off a fuel mileage miracle here as Matt Schlosser set it on that last stint, or full stint, I should say, and got all the good out of that race car, especially with those tires, and he is getting even more out of it right now as he is battering, using and abusing those 17-inch Goodyear Eagles, getting everything he can out of the hood, making that V8 perform to maximum capabilities, trying to run down the 20 who was in eco mode. Does he have enough time? Is there still over 2 seconds of separation between that Dark Horse Mustang and the 400 of Matt Schlosser? The gap continues to shrink. Let's jump on board with your leader, Diego Rodriguez, and send it to his GoPro camera. And you can see the 400 of Schlosser looming out the back bumper. Look how much ground he was able to make into that chicane, as that lead is now officially under 2 seconds there at the line. Last lap, final lap here from the road course at Daytona. Does Diego have enough midnight oil in the tank? Or does Matt Schlosser have enough drive and fight left in that 400? Schlosser overdrove it there. That interval spiked over 2 seconds once again. However, it comes down quickly. Holding steady at about 1.90 now through this higher speed section of the racetrack. As we join Coker on board, he can see his prey. Less than 2 seconds as he tries to get that ZL1 Camaro to rotate. He puts the power down as he almost takes it to red line, hard into this braking zone. He's going to have to send it in there like grandma's business after church on Sunday, and he does. He bobbles a little as he takes it up high, wide to the wall. That gap now goes back over 2 seconds again. We're back out onto the speedway portion of the racetrack, into that braking zone. Matt Coker only able to shave about a half a second off, where that 20 was really saving fuel. Back off the brakes, back onto the loud pedal here once again for the final time. As he takes it up to the high side of that racetrack, the 20, the Michigan man, into the braking zone for the final time here. Looking to send by Schlosser. I don't know how he got that car to stop, but it's not going to be enough, as the Michigan man is going to have the plan at Daytona to hold off a hard-charging Matt Schlosser and win on a fuel mileage miracle. Diego Rodriguez is your winner. Holy good Lord Jesus, that just happened. Diego Schlosser comes home second. Chevrolet and a Ford battling out. He's going to come up here and give him a salute here, a high five. What a battle between these two drivers. And don't forget about Austin Dawson, who comes home third. Racers Elite, I'm telling you folks, they never disappoint. Even with as strung out as they got out there on the racetrack, they still deliver here at the Daytona Road Course. Absolutely incredible stuff here. What a drive. Strategy, tire saving, fuel mileage. Had just enough to get it done here at Daytona. Diego Rodriguez says those orange rotors, those rotors are glowing orange. They're hotter than lava. Similar story there for that ZL1 Camaro. I'll tell you what, those rotors may have been hot, but their performance is even hotter as they deliver here at the Big House as we now shift to post-race coverage here. Going to get ready to talk to our top three as we always do right here on Racers Elite Network. Want to thank all of you for joining us here on Red Line Racing Network. We now wait for our top three to join us in the Tony Trapasso Memorial broadcast booth. Standing by now. Joining me now in the Tony Trapasso Memorial broadcast booth, driver of the 400, Matt Schlosser. Matt, up top, you got a copy there, brother.
Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Man, well, first and foremost, I got to thank you and Diego for putting on a heck of a show. That was a great battle, a good old-fashioned road course bout. One driver having all the fuel to make it can go as hard as he wants. Another trying to conserve and stretch the midnight oil. Walk me through your race, Matt. What was it like out there on the racetrack, and what could you may have done differently at the end to turn the outcome of this race? But my God, what a drive by you this evening! Incredible to watch.
Thanks. Yeah, it was a really fun race. I mean, I did not have the pace I wanted to have in the beginning. I even in practice and qualifying, I didn't get a very good handle on the track, and then about a quarter of the way into the race, I started to feel pretty good. I was starting to match the times of Diego and Dawson up there, and really we were pretty close. And then our strategies diverged, and he did a great job. Diego did managing the fuel, here in the win. I wish I was like one or two more laps because I feel like I was just kind of knocking on the door, but he did a good job. He earned it. I'm happy to finish second, especially after not feeling confident at the start. So it was a good run for me in the end.
That's a great point there, Matt. I mean, the way this race started off, it didn't seem like you had the pace that I thought you were going to have, especially in the early going. But what type of adjustments were you able to
Hey,
make?
Matt, you're muted. I'm not sure if you're trying to talk right now or not, but I see your mute sign on.
I have no idea how that happened. I'm like, did I lose Matt? And then thank you for saying that. I didn't even have that window up. That's that's funny. But getting back to what I was talking about, uh, you know, you mentioned there at the top of the race, and the performance just wasn't where you thought it would should be in that car. What were you able to do over the course of this race? What were you able to learn, and how did you apply it out there on the racetrack to get that car really to wake up in the second half of the race and to start putting the pressure on the 20 the way that you did?
Yeah, I mean, I really just needed like repetitions on the laps. I mean, I was making a lot of errors in the final chicane. I was driving in too hard into both the International Horseshoe and the West Horseshoe, and I kind of had to like use the old slow down a little bit to go faster, and it helps me keep the tires from getting too hot and getting a rhythm. So I wish I had figured it out a little sooner. I might have been able to pull off a win, but it's definitely not a bad result.
Now, that was a heck of a drive from you. I mean, I saw a lot of professionalism out there from you, and not getting up, putting the seat time in to figure out, and take those risks to figure out what you could do behind the wheel of that race car to ultimately improve your performance. And I watched you do that all race long. Those lap times continuously got faster, and then we could see how that momentum shift translated to the 20 as you really started to apply the pressure to him. Talk to me about those couple of close misses that you had coming into that chicane from hell. I mean, that thing looked like it had a ton of Waffle House bacon grease down there. I think it was the 84 that you missed by fractions of an inch. I just happened to be on board with your bumper cam when it happened live. That was a wild moment. What were your thoughts there?
Yeah, that was pretty scary. I thought that might have been the end of my race, but Dawson did a good job locking it down, and I was able to kind of judge where he was going to be. Luckily, you're only going like it seems like 20 miles an hour there anyway, so you're able to kind of like maneuver if you need to. But yeah, it was. I mean, I could not wrap my head around how early you had to start braking for that chicane. But when you think about it, it's downhill. It's extremely tight. It's weird, pavement down low that's not part of the normal track. So yeah, it was easy to get greedy there and lock it up and lose precious time on your lap. So it took some discipline through there.
Yeah, I appreciate the analysis and feedback and the breakdown. Before I cut you loose, Matt, who do you want to thank who helps you get it done on the 400?
Yeah, sure. Shout out to Racers Elite and Andrew for hosting the league, and shout out to you for the broadcast, and also my satellite teammates, Zach Lockett and Josh Freed. They were in the race today, so shout out to them as well. And congrats again to Diego on a job well done. He earned it.
Well, there he is, ladies and gentlemen. Matt Schlosser didn't have the pace at the start of this race, but he was able to dig deep and find some serious boogie under the hoodie of that Camaro and go up there and put on a thriller, competing with Diego Rodriguez for the win. Comes up just a little bit short, but still a great performance from Matt Schlosser. Thanks for joining me up here at the booth, bud.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. Always a pleasure to talk to Matt Schlosser, and a great addition here to Racers Elite. Hopefully he sticks around here in competition as we continue to go ahead and progress through our post-race coverage here on Racers Elite Network. If you guys missed the finish, I mean, it was an absolute thriller here at the end between Diego Rodriguez and Matt Schlosser, putting on an epic battle. And in fact, let's talk to the other partner of that tale here. As this does not want to cooperate with me. What in the world is going on here? Well, we're just going to, you know what? I have a solution to this. We're just going to jump down to the waiting room. Diego Rodriguez, Matt, up in the Tony Trapasso Memorial broadcast booth. You got a copy there, boss?
Yeah, I do.
We'll try it one more time. Diego, Matt, up top, you got a copy, sir?
Yeah, I do. Can you hear me?
Let's switch gears here. Dawson, Matt, you got a copy?
Hello?
Seem to have
Hello?
lost audio
don't think
here
you can
at the
hear
end of
us.
this race.
Yeah, I
The
don't
Discord
think
server.
so.
As I cannot hear any of these drivers. Let's try it again. One more time. Diego, you got a copy. Matt, up top in the booth.
Yeah, I hear you.
There we go. Sorry about that. I got locked in the bear cage up there in the broadcast booth. I couldn't pull you. I couldn't pull you guys up, so I dropped down to you guys.
All right, it's all good.
Anyways, first of all, what a performance from you out there on the racetrack. You and Matt Schlosser, man. I was standing up in the booth. I didn't know who was going to win, if you were going to have enough fuel, if he was going to walk me through this race. And I got to tap my hat to you, man. That was some performance you had out of that out of that Dark Horse Mustang. I mean, you had that car on rails all race long. How are you able to get that kind of a pace out of that thing?
I mean, from the beginning, it was real good, the car. I felt like me and the 84 were running the same laps, and then Matt came into the picture. The last pit stop, I already knew I wasn't gonna have enough fuel, so from the minute I came out of the pits, my mind was set on saving fuel so that I would have just barely enough to cross the line and not have to pit again. And that's what I did. Down the backstretch, coming right off the banking, I'd turn the engine off, clutch in, just let it coast all the way down to where I would brake. And then same thing with the final chicane. Those were the only two spots that I would save, but I managed to save just enough so that when Matt would pit, I came out in front of him. And I mean, I finished with like a tenth of a lap left of fuel.
I was going to ask you how much fuel you had left in the tank, and I knew it couldn't have been much. And we jumped on board with you, and I saw you skip shift a couple times, and you were jumping on that clutch really early, rolling that momentum, doing everything you could there to try to save enough juice to make it to the finish. Was that plan something that you had kind of preset before you hopped into the race car, or did you kind of, just diverse this plan on the fly as this race progressed?
I knew from the beginning we had about 14-ish laps of fuel per run, so I already knew that it was gonna have to be a third pit stop, but it would be very short. So I was thinking the entire time, like, do I save or do I pit? Like, are they gonna save or do they pit? Well, I don't think either of them saved, and they both pit. I saved, and I was able to pass Matt in the pits.
Yeah, you absolutely were. And, as this was unfolding real time, it occurred to me when, after that cycle of pit stops, that either one, Schlosser had really picked the pace up, he was holding back, or perhaps you were in economy mode out there trying to stretch the fuel mileage, and that became more apparent. That was the game plan after I went on board with you a couple times. There was 2 laps of separation between your final pit stops. You were down on lap 29, Matt Schlosser on lap 27. So obviously the 400 knew he was going to come down pit road again, so he was trying to get all of everything he could, to stretch that gap out of the race car. To your point, you just played the strategy a little bit better, had more pace in your car at the end there, and just enough fuel in the tank to get you across the start finish line. But what a job by you all around, man. That was a really fun, exciting race to call there with the strategy at the end. Before I cut you loose, who do you want to thank who helps you get it done on your ride?
Yeah, you guys for putting on a really good broadcast, Andrew for hosting a really good league. Um, Parents for watching when I race and stuff. They really enjoy us. That's really it.
Well, there he is, ladies and gentlemen. Diego puts on a heck of a performance here as he goes full-blown Las Vegas high-stakes mode on a big-time fuel mileage gamble. It pays off, and he's able to punch his ticket into victory lane with a very dominant road course performance here. Thanks for joining me in the Tony Terpass Memorial booth. You have a great evening, man. I hope I talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
To Diego, and certainly last but not least, man, and that who came home third, had a great performance out there on the racetrack. It was certainly exciting for you at times. Welcome to Up Top, Dawson. Thanks for joining me in the booth.
Thanks for having me.
First and foremost, I want to make sure I'm saying your last name right. How do you say it, sir?
Olferts.
Okay, I was close. Alford's noted, and I will utilize that moving forward. So thank you. So you come out of here with a third place finish, and I mean this race for you was anything but a clean Sunday drive. I mean you had some moments
Oh,
out there on that racetrack, those braking zones. I mean they launched you. That race car battered you senseless at times. That thing was going to flip over a couple times, and yet you were able to rebound, come home with a solid third place finish. Walk me through your run this evening.
yeah, I'm gonna be completely honest. I would not consider myself a great road racer. I I don't understand braking zones in the slightest. I had to put in about 80 hours this month just practicing this track. So I could go out there and at least have somewhat of a fighting chance. And when I saw that I qualified second, I was like, maybe if I just keep the leader within visual distance of me, I can scrape out of here with hopefully a podium, my first podium in Racers Elite. So happy with that. But yeah, just managed to keep my car under control. I figured once I built up a little bit of a gap, if I could just maintain a little bit of a gap from the car behind me, I could do something. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
So I want to stop you right there. You said 80 hours of seat time preparing for this race. Did I hear that correctly?
I would put it up there. Yeah. I have not raced this month in like actual iRacing. I've just been driving around this track trying to learn road courses. I've never raced the next gen cars on a road course, so I figured I might as well just bump a bunch of time into it and try and learn as much as I can. Now I'm gonna gear up for Coda. Not gonna practice anything else but that pretty much until Coda.
Well, I first I want to just tip my hat to you and just say, you know, big time props to you for putting in that type of work and seat time. I mean, 80 hours, that's a lot of time. Not to mention everything that goes on, priorities in your personal life first and foremost. And that's the thing I think a lot of people that tune into these broadcasts and don't know understand about iRacing and the guys that are out there on the virtual racetrack. I mean, this isn't a console where you just load in and jump on and go. Whatever happens, happens. I mean, this is time, dedication, fitting it into your schedule, other things you could be doing, but you sacrifice that to go out there so you can come out here to Daytona on this road course and get yourself a podium. And you really had to work for it. And I mean, you got to have it be an awesome feeling for that to work out for you, especially with the limited experience in this car and coming out here and getting yourself a podium. That's got to feel pretty good.
Oh yeah, it feels great.
And I'll tell you what, that's not easily done. Uh, if I tried to go out there right now and turn a couple laps, I'd probably be in the sand more than David Hasselhoff. I mean, I'd probably be atrocious. But that's how tough and treacherous this track is, and it tests the best of us. And you really seem to be confident out there, and now I understand why. That's all that seat time and preparation you put in. Um, it seemed like the curbing, the sausage patties, really sent this next gen car. It really upset the balance. It would launch it into the air with just minimal contact at times. Was that your experience out there as well?
Oh yeah. I had a battle with the 400 car early on in the race where I got caught up on those little turtle shells, and they it did not end well for me. I saw him coming in my rear view, and I was more worried about where he would be at, me giving him enough room. And by the time that I got to that little bus stop there, that last chicane, I kind of misjudged my entry and realized that I was going straight for him. Tried to lock it down as best I could and let him by.
Well, I just happened to be on the front bumper camera of Schlosser's car when that incident broke out live, and it was definitely a highlight moment. You did a heck of a job locking that car down. I thought you guys were gonna make some confetti out there on the racetrack. I thought it was gonna be two cars going back to the pits for a fast repair or going off to the hall or the scrap yard, but you were able to lock it down just enough, and Matt had just enough daylight to work with to get to clear you. So it was certainly intense, but seemed like that was the same case for a lot of the other drivers. You would just get that turtle shell a little bit, and I mean it would completely just lift the car right up the off the racetrack. You were helplessly holding on for the ride at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wish it was like the standard curves, like on the first bus stop. That way you could use them a little bit, help the car turn more. But they decided to go with those big blocky curves, and doesn't help the car, especially when these next gen cars can't really get those tight turns. But tried to make the most of it. Tried to make it work for me, and somehow pulled out a third place for it. And so can't complain too much.
No, thank you for the insight. So that explains what the problem was. So that's a more aggressively profiled turtle shell down than the standard ones. That checks the box. We couldn't figure out why you guys were flying up in the air like on X Games. Everybody would touch those things, but now it makes sense. So thank you for that. And man, before I cut you loose, man, who do you want to thank? Who do you want to shout out? Who helps you get it done on your ride, bud?
I want to thank you guys up in the booth for putting on a great broadcast for us each and every week. I want to thank Andrew for putting this league together, throwing together a good league here. Yeah, it's really about it. Don't have a team yet. Still looking for that opportunity. So trying to get that done. But yeah, we'll appreciate you guys for always putting on a great show for us.
Well, there he is, ladies and gentlemen. Dawson Ulfert's the grinder of the week. 80 hours of time preparation into this race pays off with a third place podium finish. Dedication and practice gets it done here on the road course side of things. Thanks for your time up top, and I hope I speak with you soon, bud.
Thank you. You as well.
And that'll complete our interview portion of our broadcast. And as you heard from the top three, it was anything but easy down there tonight. In spite of not being racked and stacked on top of each other how you would at Daytona traditionally, it was still hot, wild, and crazy down there on the racetrack. And the finish was an absolute thriller as Racers Elite delivers again here on Thursday night in the Next Gen Series. Before we head and sign off this evening, let's go ahead and take a look here at the final results. We already know who came home in the top three, as we just heard from them right here during the post-race show. Go ahead and throw those results up on the screen for you folks at home. Your winner, an epic dramatic finish, Diego Rodriguez in the 4. Abel the best, Matt Schlosser, a hard-charging Matt Schlosser in the 400. Dawson, the grinder of the week in the 84 machine, rounds out your top 3. Zach Lockett in that 93 machine comes home 4th. Well, Brendan Honeycutt from Extreme Driving is going to slot home in that top 5. The HMFIC Hood Cook Chief and Bottle Washer, Tef the Andrew version comes home 6th, while Troy Thomas, the Nitrous Cowboy, rounds out your top 7. The 55 Ride of Truth Hoax going to reside in 8th, while Dennis in that 4 machine is going to come home in that 9th place position, while the Napa Know-How Man, Kensley Smith, rounds out your top 10. The 42 being piloted by Leroy comes home 11th, while Lee Campbell in the 60 comes home in 12th. Ryan Coker had an eventful and wild race. Is going to slot in that 13th place position, while the Colonel in the 10, Kirby Wainscott, going to sneak in just inside the top 15 in that 14th place position. Eckerd Curtis in that 8 machine, going to get credit running out your top 15th, while Tef, the Alex version, going to come across that start-finish line on the final lap, good for P16. Alan Bergen in the 00 did not finish this race, as was for Josh Freed, who rides out the 18 drivers that initially took the green flag here this evening. At this point in time, I want to thank all the partners, sponsors, strategic partners, and all the drivers and you guys at home that help show up to support the cause that make this race available. Like, share, subscribe, get the word out, tell your friends, join the family, join Racers Elite Network. This way you don't miss any of all the high-fly and high-octane coverage, as they have racing literally, virtually almost every single night a week here on the Racers Elite side of things. And as the late, great Tony Trapasso used to say, as you walk down the road of life this week, do us all a favor, don't play in traffic, and we'll see you all next time right here on Racers Elite Network.